Hey, this is Fit Farming Mama. So today I'm going to show you how to make stuffed cabbage the way that we do it now that we've had to transition away from meat products. So this does contain oil, but I've tried to substitute out like my chicken broth for vegetable broth, and this is really my first time making it, so we'll see if it turns out. And if it does, feel free to use it. If it's posted, that means it turned out. So tomato basil soup is the base, and then we'll also be doing stuffed cabbage. Alrighty, thanks. So the first thing we're going to end up doing is we're going to take some coconut oil, and I know you can't see these labels, but this one is organic. We're going to put in a couple tablespoons of oil. You can also use a pan that doesn't require oil if you want to. But for me, the oil makes me feel fuller, I guess. And then what you're going to do, we're making it actually a double recipe, so this will feed a family of 4, but then we're going to take 1 chopped onion and we're going to place it in here, and we're going to cook this until it's clear. So for the sake of you watching boringness, I'm going to fast forward. Okay, so now our onions are really getting translucent. They're starting to caramelize just a little bit, so I've shut off the burner. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this in a food processor with some tomatoes. So I will switch cameras. Okay, so I've added the onions to my food processor, and then I'm going to be adding 2 quarts of tomatoes. So I can my own tomatoes. If you don't have canned tomatoes, you can use diced tomatoes, the large cans, like maybe 2 or 3 of those. So I'm just going to add that in. And then you're just going to puree this, because you don't want onion pieces in your soup. It wouldn't hurt if you had a few. Okay, so we're going to transfer this to a pan, and we're going to add some other ingredients. Okay, so we've got our pan ready. Now normally I just make 1 batch, so I put it all in my little cast iron pan, but because I'm making a double batch, I'm actually going to transfer all this into a stock pot. So you're going to pour in your tomatoes and onion mixture. And then this also calls for 2 cups of chicken broth. So I am transferring that over into a vegetable stock. So I'm going to add 4 cups because this is a double batch. Add that in. Okay, there's my vegetable stock. And then this also called for honey, so I'm going to substitute maple syrup. So I'm going to add in 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. I hope all these substitutions don't affect the taste, but I'm trying to cook a little more vegan. And we do have bees, because bees are basically disappearing, so we do raise them. I have yet to be successful. Something always ends up killing them, so trying to do my part to help the environment. Okay, and then we're going to add just like a half a teaspoon or so of salt. You can salt this more later as you get done. And then I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of basil. And so I didn't measure that. FYI. Okay, the only other thing that goes in here is a bay leaf and some almond milk. So the reason why I'm not going to put that in right at the moment is because I don't want this to scorch. So I will put the almond milk in towards the end of cooking. But I'm going to hunt down my bay leaves and put a couple of those in there, and you're just going to cook this until it's warm. You can cook it down to a reduction if you want, if you're just doing the soup, but since we're going to be doing a cabbage, I want to be able to cook it longer, so I'm just going to heat this up until it is nice and cooked, and add in a cup of almond milk, and we'll be good to go. So this has been cooking now for about 15 minutes. And I actually tasted it, and it tastes pretty similar, so I think we're good to go on these substitutions. So this is starting to cook down, and I'm going to go ahead and add my cup of almond milk. You can use coconut or rice. Probably rice would be better. And this will make your cream. I do have my bay leaves in here. I put like 3 or 4 small ones. The bay leaves are what kind of give it that, I don't know, the Campbell's taste, I guess. So I'm going to probably boil this for another 15 minutes, and then I'm going to transfer it to my crock pot. This is like a half-day thing, so if you were going to put it in a crock pot, you could put it on low for 8 hours, and it should be fine. Make this the night before, maybe, and stick everything kind of in the crock pot and let it sit in the fridge, and then pop it in for 8 hours. But it's like 2:30, and we usually eat at 6, so I'm basically going to do crock pot with my cabbage, probably on high for 4 hours. But I am going to show you how I make the interior of my cabbage rolls. Hi! So, soup is boiling, and so what I do for my rice is I actually make baked rice, and I do this the night before. If you are going to be putting it in the crock pot for 8 hours, you might want to use like a minute rice and don't cook it. But for me, like, I have to make it today because we're running out of our meal plan. We had to switch some days. So I always keep baked rice. I actually bake it, and then I put it in my little Pampered Chef batter bowl in the fridge because it has a lid. And whenever we need rice real quick, sometimes if we need like a super quick meal, it is a bag of frozen vegetables and rice. And all I have to do is warm everything up in the microwave, and we're good to go with a little soy sauce. So I already have probably like 2 to 4 cups of rice. And what I added in here was probably about a teaspoon or 2 of poultry seasoning. And then I added in about a teaspoon of sage and some red peppers, the sweet bell peppers. I usually add in mushrooms, but my mushrooms were gross. So what are you going to do? Can't do it. So this will be my interior. So what I'm going to do is pretty much almost cook my cabbage leaves because I only have 4 hours to cook this. I'm pretty much going to cook my cabbage leaves as much as I can, roll it all up, and stick it in the crock pot. So I will show you when I get my cabbage leaves all done, and I just steam them until they're done. I just pull them back and steam them. So yeah, I need this pot to steam my stuff. So in like 20 minutes, which will be at a blink of an eye, I'll be right back. Okay, so now that my cabbage leaves are pretty much steamed, and you can see this one did not peel away too well, I rinsed these in cool water so I could handle them, and then I'm gonna take just a little handful of the mix and kind of pack it together. If you overcook your rice a little bit, then it'll make it more sticky. And you're just going to place this towards the back of it, and then you're just going to fold in the sides, and then basically just kind of a tuck and roll across everything. Oops. And then when you're done, you want to grab a toothpick, and you want to secure it so that it stays nice and rounded together. Okay? So here, I'll do another one. This one turned out decently better. There's no, I'll put a little more in this one. This one will be for Dad. So I'm going to tuck that in there, fold over the sides, and then just give a little roll. If you have something that V's like that, you could just kind of tuck it around each other. I'm sorry I can't zoom this limited cameras. Let's see. So you can just do, like I said, you can do this with all raw rice and your mixture with minute rice. Do it with minute rice, please, or brown minute rice. But the if you make the soup ahead of time and you make these ahead of time, you can actually just put them all together in a crock pot. You know, make them the night before when you're actually cooking dinner. Well, I can't really put this one on the base. I guess we'll fold the base first. Whatever way you can get it where the rice doesn't come out, you're good to go. My mom made it look so much easier than what this one's turning out to be. So, all right, we'll just have to fold it weirdly. It doesn't have to look totally pretty, just decently appetizing. That's all it has to do. Now here's a nice cabbage leaf that I got to go. And basically when you steam these, they'll lay more flat for you than, you know, if you were to try to do it with hard cabbage leaves. They'll start breaking. And fold. And tuck. So there's my stuffed cabbage. Feel free to add ingredients or anything like that. Plus you can just make the tomato basil stuff if you want to on its own. But I will be back with a shot of everything inside my crock pot. So there it all is, sitting in my crock pot. I made 6 to 8 of these. And if you have extra rice and stuff, you can totally save that for another meal. So there's that. Thank you so much for watching this horrible video on how to try to make something, because, you know, I just haven't done a lot of recipe videos, but this recipe is really good. I was really surprised how well the substitutions turned out. So had I made this and had all the time in the world, I would have made my tomato basil soup, and I would have let that cool and then put it in the refrigerator overnight. I also would have steamed my cabbage and filled that up with a minute rice, maybe lightly steamed so it held it together a little bit better, but with all the seasonings and raw bell pepper, thrown all that in and made my little pockets, my cabbage roll pockets, and then put that in the fridge as well. And then before I left to go to work, I would put everything in the crock pot and turn it on, I guess, low for 8 hours. So I hope that's helpful. If not, we'll just make the soup and you're good to go, because the soup is really good. The directions for the soup will be down in the description box, and I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 batch in there because most people don't really make 2 batches. I usually make that, I used to make it when we did grilled cheese. So you could use a vegan cheese. Daya makes a really good one. A vegan cheddar, so you could make some, you know, the same old-fashioned, you know, stuff we used to eat and we don't anymore. We try to, but it's a good meal for kids who are still transitioning over to a more vegan plant-based diet. So just try the Daya cheddar blocks and make yourself some grilled cheese and tomato soup, or you can go ahead and do these as well, the stuffed cabbage in there. But what you can also do too is just cut up the cabbage and cook it all together with some rice. We've done that a lot as well, because it's really hard to get those cabbage leaves to turn out well enough that you can stuff them. So just play around with the recipe a little bit, but enjoy the tomato basil soup because it is just freaking awesome. Thank you so much for watching.